Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vibe Guide. I hope everyone's having a happy week. I don't even know what today is, Wednesday. Today was a little bit of a weird day. I wasn't gonna record a podcast, but then I had to wake up at 2 o'clock for work. Well, I didn't have to wake up that early, but I just did. I think my body was like in anxiety mode because I didn't want to oversleep. But we had to wake up even earlier today because of the snow to get the patients in. I was at work by 4 and then I was back home by 1 and got on the couch, took a shower, ate some mini corn dogs. Okay, not like me. I don't know where that came from, but I was like had a craving for corn dogs. Okay. And then when it's snowing, like you always kind of want just like junk food, so whatever. Um, yeah, ate some little mini corn dogs, turned on 90 Day Fiance and which, by the way, that is the best show. Like the Pillow Talk ones of like the people who were on the show, and then they reviewed like the newer seasons of like these couples that like do international dating, which me and Sebastian should have been on the show because it would have been so entertaining for you all, like the amount of drama we had. Oh my God. Anyways, so what was I saying? So I fell asleep from like God, I got home at like 1, probably from like 2:30 until like 7. So now I'm just like awake. It's like 10 o'clock at night. So I was like, you know what? Let's do a pod. Let's just do a pod. So we're here. Little updates, I guess, from last week, or no, 2 weeks ago, I guess now. I officially accepted the job offer. So I will be starting pretty soon with a new job. I think actually my last day at work is next Thursday. Woo-hoo-hoo. I can't even believe it. It's like not even real. I'm like kind of sad. So, but I'm excited too. Like I'm definitely excited. So, anyways, this was like my first time like kind of negotiating or counter offering really. So that was an experience. A very quick, short experience, but still an experience. Actually, I take that back. I take that back. I definitely renegotiated my hourly wage when I was like really young. Like, I don't know who I think I am. So I graduated college, had no job prospects. And my dad was like, "Hey, well, we just got this VDOT contract and like we're gonna need help. Do you want to be like an administrative assistant or something like that?" And I was like, "Sure. Sounds great." He's like, "Well, actually, I don't think I was like super excited, but I was like, okay." And I remember everyone was like, "Oh, it'll be a great opportunity, blah, blah." And I like wasn't so sure. But anyways, I did it. It was comical. Like this is how comical it was. I have no idea. My dad's an engineer, for those that don't know. He's got his own company. Very small company. Like it was like him and a partner, and there was probably like what, 6 employees between the two of them or something like that, maybe even less. And then by the time that contract came around, we probably like doubled it, so maybe like 12 in total or something like that. So very small company, but um this was the first time they had had like a contract with like you know, any kind of like bigger contract. Like at this point, it's just like jobs. Like they both niche in like different things, like my dad and his business partner, and then they come together and they have their company, whatever. So, anyways, it was all like kind of a big experiment and like trial and error. And so I come on board. I'm like right out of college. I have no idea. Like I have a degree in psychology. Like I'm like, okay. Um, so I remember like showing up and they're like tagging into like VDOT with their like little lanyards and whatever. And it's like this old building and it's just like crusty. And I'm like, and I remember that he was like a younger dude. And he had like, okay, maybe I shouldn't say all this because I don't, God only knows who listens to this and whose ears get to this. But anyways, he worked there. I don't know if he still works there or not. But he was kind of a younger guy, but he also gave like kind of dick energy. Like looking back on it, at the time, I didn't really feel it because I was like 20. I was just like super nervous. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like working with my dad's business partner. Like I just like wanted to make like a good impression and just like try and do my job, which I also had no idea what my job was. Like no one gave me like a list of like duties or was like, here, do this. Like this is what we expect of you. None of that. It was like, here's we got to show up here. There's a meeting, like show up. And I was like, okay. So I at least knew to come with like pen and paper, which I didn't use. But so I show up, we're like in this VDOT building in Richmond, and like the head guy, he's kind of a younger guy. He's like one of those, which like looking back, I'm like, how did he? So he had like a bunch of kids at home. Then he would like go for a run in the middle of the day on his lunch break. And now looking back and like being a nurse, I'm like, these are the people that work for like these like state run. Like, this is why I'm not here for the bureaucracy. Because I'm like, I'm over here working my fucking dick off at the hospital, shoveling food into my face. And you're working at the Virginia Department of Transportation and going for like an hour long run and like taking a shower or like whatever you do in the morning, like every morning it was like clockwork. You go like run around the like little Richmond Capitol, whatever. And I'm like, that kind of hit me the wrong way because I'm like, who has time to do that in the middle of the day? Like, and I remember like that bothering me. I was like a 20-some-year-old because I'm like, what? Like, what do you actually do? And I remember it was just like a lot of like nothing. And I feel like that's like a lot of bureaucracy. I'm like, y'all do like a lot of nothing all day. So, anyways, and I felt like he was a little condescending towards me. Like, we would be in these meetings and he'd be like, so what do you think, Caroline? What's your opinion? And I'm like, you know what you can't tell if someone like really wants your opinion or they're just like goading you or like, because I kind of got that energy, but at like 22, I wasn't going to be like, are you being a fucking dick to me? Like, what is this? Like, you don't want my opinion. You don't give a shit about my opinion. So, like, so if there was like a lot of that shady fucking energy, like political bullshit that I'm like not here for. Like, especially at 22, I could feel it then. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, whatever y'all say. Like, what? That's what the answers I would give. I don't really have an opinion. You know, I'm just here. And so we had like one of our first few meetings, and I remember leaving the meeting and we got back to the like our office, and like my boss at the time was like, Caroline, do you have the notes for the meeting? Like, can you email those to me? And I was like, huh? The notes for the meeting? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, no, I didn't take any notes. And he was like, Caroline, like that's your job. And I was like, oh, well, fucking no one told me. Like, newsflash, like you act like I went to administrative school. Like, I went to administrative assistant school or something like that. Like, what do you, like, I took some notes, like, important shit that I thought might be important to write down. I wrote down, maybe like the next time we're meeting, that's what I wrote down. But I'm like, we talked about a bunch of nothing. Y'all went around in circles. Like, what do you want me to take notes on that? What the fuck? I literally was like, okay. So I remember from there on out, I took notes and I remember reading the back and being like, see, he's fucking dumb. Y'all get like nothing done all day. We sit there for 45 minutes and we get nothing done. And then homeboy goes for a run and then like tittles his fucking keyboard and like we continue to just like go in circles. So that contract did not last very long, as you can tell. So what happened was is that I ended up in the administrative position because my dad took it over. So he's like, "Hey, well listen, like come on and be the administrator because there's no point in me hiring someone else that like has no idea." And I was like, "Okay." So here I am, like now I'm at the taking the administrator position. Barely even knew what the fuck I was doing for the administrative assistant position. And I remember my stepmom being like, well, are you gonna like negotiate more pay? And I was like, hmm, you got a point there. I don't know. Should I? I was like, it's my dad. And she's like, Carolyn, yeah, like, yeah, if you're gonna go from like an administrative assistant to an administrator, yeah, you should. And I was like, okay. So like I was like, I remember I walked into my dad's office, which is in our home, by the way. And I like walk in there and I'm like, hey dad, so if I'm gonna be like taking Stacy's job and like doing her job, like should I get paid what she gets paid? Like, and he was like, and this is like classic my dad. Like you'll ask a question and he'll just it's like and I'm like, hello. And he's like, yeah, what, Caroline? What? And I'm like, are you gonna pay me more money? Because like I'm not doing it unless you pay me more money. Like I'm not gonna go do more work and have more responsibility, a lot more responsibility, and like not get paid. And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, what do you go, $20 an hour? I was like, 25. He's like, okay, great, 25 an hour. So I was like, all right, well, woo, $25 an hour. Thought I was big shit, honey. And which is a lot of money. Like right out of college, that's what my base pay was for as a nurse. Like it was like 25.50 or something like that. And granted, I worked night shift, so I got like more, like $12 more or something like that. But I was like, okay, big shit walking, honey, $25 an hour. So yeah, that was comical. That didn't even last that long. I think I continued to work there for maybe like 9 more months after that. After like a few massive blowups with my dad. Y'all have no idea. We got in like this one massive fight. I will never forget this. Like because I was living in Richmond at the time, and I would commute now to Fredericksburg because I was working in Richmond at my dad's business partner's office. But my dad, so I would go to Fredericksburg, drive up there. And so I'd be up there by like 9, you know what I mean? Like 9 to 5, whatever. And I remember I walked in the door, and if you guys don't probably don't know my dad, but like he can be a terror to say the least. So he's just like in a fucking mood, man, and I can feel it. I walk in the door and he like comes in and he's like, "Yeah, I need those pivot tables, Caroline." And I'm like, "Okay, like can I set my stuff down?" Like, and I don't even think I like came at it like that. I was like, "All right, like give me 1 second. Like I just walked in, I'll get it for you. I'll email it to you." And I was like, what email do you, I remember even asking, like, what email do you want me to send it to? And he's like, this one. And I was like, okay, damn, like fucking pissed in your Cheerios this morning. So I was still trying to just like work it out, whatever. We had the sweetest guy who was an intern from UVA who was here interning. And so he's got his little desk next to mine. And then my dad comes out, and my dad is just like, he can be such an asshole. So he comes out and he's like, now at this point, the volume of his voice has gotten louder, the tone of his voice has gotten real disrespectful. And he's kind of like in my face. He's like pulled up a chair next to my chair, and he's like, I need the pivot table. Like, where are the pivot tables? And at that point, no, sir. Don't ever speak to me like that. I don't give a fuck who you are. And I flew off the fucking handle. And this poor little intern who is he's still maybe a junior or something like that at UVA, like the nicest guy. He's like a sweetheart. And I remember looking at his face and he was like, "Oh my God, do I look over?" Like, I don't look over. Like, oh my God, they're screaming at each other. And I mean, I remember I just like went the fuck off and I walked out of the house. And I even remember, I feel like my stepmom was like at the top of the stairs because she worked at home too. And I feel like she was at the top of the stairs and was like, "What is going on? Like I'm on a call." And I remember like saying something really rude to her and being like, "You can kiss my fucking ass too." Like something like that. Like I went off on everybody and walked out the door. And I remember like my dad's still yelling at me. I'm yelling at him. And I'm collecting my stuff. Granted, y'all, I just drove an hour. It's not even 9:15 by this point. I showed up at 9. I'm grabbing collecting my little bags, collecting my little thing. Good luck with your $1 million contract. Shove it up your fucking ass. And here comes my brother, because my brother works for my dad too. My brother's walking in the kitchen, like walking in the front door. And I'm like passing him. I'm like, peace. And he's just like, because he's so non-confrontational. So he's like, yeah, all right, bye. Like, see you later. You good? And I'm like, yep. Like, got in my car, put that bitch in reverse, went right back down 95, went in my house, didn't speak to my dad for like 3 or 4 days, didn't go back to work for like 3 or 4 days. I was like, you figure it out. You figure out the pivot tables, dog. Like, I don't ever speak to me like that. And yeah, it was like it was not pretty. And I remember my dad actually apologized. So I think it's the only time he's ever apologized. and called me and was like, "Yeah, I went for a walk with the dogs. And like, I just had a chance to think about it. I'm really sorry." And I'm like, "Yeah, looking back on it now, it's like, yeah, you are sorry because you needed me for your financial life, Like you didn't want to apologize a year ago when you did the same behavior when it involved my dog." Anyways, I've said too much. I've said too much. Anyways, so yeah, that was not a pleasant time actually. And when that contract ended, I was like so relieved, but I was also scared. And then I ended up getting a job as a waitress. And I was also like applying to grad school and like all kinds of shit at the same time. So funny. And I'll never forget, like, I was working at Burger Batch in Short Pump, and the guy who, I don't know what his role was, but I was not a fan of this dude. He just gave me the fucking ick. And he was like a little like whimpering dog like energy. Like, I don't know. I was like, bro, like grow a pair. Like, I don't know. He's just like weird snake like energy to me. I didn't like him. And I was actually like a hostess at Burger Batch, and he walks in and he's like, "Caroline?" Because the last time he saw me, I was like big dick energy making $25 an hour as an administrative assistant and or an administrator, for this company. And then he walks in and he's like, "You're a hostess? Like fall from grace?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up? How are you? We're just two?" I didn't care. He was like, "So what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm applying to grad school, but I don't think I'll get in." I was like, I think at that point we hadn't planned on Thailand. We might have planned on Thailand. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to Thailand for a few months or something like that." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Like, it's like silly shit. But anyway, so I don't even know what I was talking about, you guys. How did we get on that tangent? Oh, that I had to negotiate. Lord. So, anyways, this job now, she called and she was like, which I've never had anyone call and kind of like pressure you to like accept a position over the phone. So she called and she was like, "Hey, they wanted, I have officially the offer." And she like said the number and I was like, it was like a little bit lower than what I wanted. So right off the bat, I was like, hmm. And she was like, "So do you want to accept?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I usually like look through the contract and stuff first. Like I don't usually like accept just blindly." Like she's like, "Oh, no. Like I'll send over the information. I'll send over everything." And I was like, "Okay, well, yeah, sure. I accept for now." I was like, "I just need to look through everything." So she sends me everything over and like from the jump, I was like, "I'm not gonna take that. Like I want a number that I want." So this was the thing. I was like, "But how do I get there? Like, how do I do this?" Because I've never had to really like professionally like negotiate, I guess you could say, or like counter offer. So I didn't want to like push it too far, but like there was a number in my mind before I even started this that I was like, "I'm not taking this job unless they give me this number, period." Like, I'm not doing it. I'm getting this number. I'm not taking this job. I don't care about anything else. Like how good the benefits are. I don't care about any of it. Like, I want this number and that's it. So obviously I couldn't say that to them, but basically I had a meeting like with my intuitive life coach, like probably 3 weeks prior to this. Kim, y'all know I love Kim. Shout out to Kim. And she said to me, she was like bringing up some stuff. She was like, "Are you going to be traveling more here in a couple months?" And like brought up a couple things. I was like, "Oh, you know what? I think you might be hitting on the job. I've applied for a job that's like a travel nurse educator." And she was like, "Oh, that's exactly what it is. Like, you're going to get this job. It's going to be fine." I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Well, do you think that they're going to give me the amount of money that I want?" And she was like, "Yes, but like, you're going to have to ask for it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I figured I would. She was like, "Yeah, they're going to come in a little low. So like, you're going to have to ask for it." And I was like, "Okay, well, any advice on like how to do that? Like, what to?" She's like, "No, not really. But like, if you have in your mind what you want, then all you can do is ask for it. And if they say no, then they just say no. And like, if they don't want to negotiate with you, they don't want to negotiate. And like, it's up to you. Like, it's in your court. Like, do you want to go get another job? Or do you want to just like take what they offer you?" And I was like, "Okay, shit. You know what? That's true." I was like really overthinking that, which we all do because that's true. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no and then they offer you the base pay. It's like in my mind, for some reason, I was thinking like if you negotiate and you hit a number that they don't like, for some reason in my mind, I feel like the company would be like, well, forget her. Like just take her off the list. Like, she doesn't want what we offer her, like then just like that's I don't know why I have that energy, but I just do. So that's what I think in my mind, like I was thinking. And like for her to say it in like that way and like they're just gonna say no, Carolyn, and like offer you the base pay. And I was like, oh, okay, shit. No, you're right. Like it's not like you completely lose the opportunity. So with that in my mind, I was still kind of like, well, how do I approach this? Like, how do you say it? I'm like, do I give them like my personal, like, babe, like student loans are X, Y, and Z now because Donald Trump and his Supreme Court people don't even want to give people the SAVE program, let alone help you out with your student loans now, but they don't even want to give you a program to help lower the cost each month. They don't even want to do that for this country. So yeah, big fucking student loan chunk of money coming out now from here on out. And I'm like, do I go with that? Like political, personal? Like, do I kind of finesse that shit in there? Or do I, how do I approach this? And then I was like, you know what? I just like, this is a business. They're a business. They're a billion-dollar business. I'm just gonna do what they would do, like probably lie and act like they don't have the money to give me, but they do. And like, let's just see. So I was like, well, okay, I have a job offer that's similar. It's at a different company. And like, I obviously worded this much better in an email, but basically, I was like, I have another offer on the table and they're giving me this number. And I would like to work for your company, but like, if you don't want to meet me there, then I'm going to have to take the other opportunity. Thank you for your time. And she called me back in like 3.5 minutes and was like, hey, they accepted your counter offer and I'll send over the new contract. And I was like, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So there was a part of me that was like, damn it, I could have probably gone even like 5 grand more. I probably could even like, because now I'm like, okay, these companies for sure, especially this like billion-dollar company, it's a massive company. They definitely have like a range that they're going in with. It's like they gave me the lowest, right? They gave me like bottom of the barrel when they came in, which is still a very sizable amount of money. Came in bottom of the barrel, and then I'm sure they had a number that was like, because the way they accepted that offer so fast, it's like they clearly have already discussed, like, okay, if she says this number, then it's a hard no. But like anywhere in between in here, we'll play. So yeah, I probably could have knocked it up a few thousand too, actually. But you know what? What I don't need to be greedy. You know what I mean? Like I actually don't. Like we'll see. We'll see how the job goes. Like we'll just see. Because I'm always about like once you get in there too, like you have more leverage. Like once I get in there and I see what's going on, like what you know what I mean? Like how am I gonna maneuver this? Like how do y'all really need me? Like can I really maneuver like more pay? Like you have more leverage. Because like especially in this dialysis position that I took, I was like, listen, y'all should have given me the cow, the moon, the sun, like everything just to be working up in here. Cause like, and that's what they were trying to give me when I was leaving. And I was like, nah, too late, too late, too late. Cause I came in on the higher end of like what dialysis nurses get paid. I only went in off of like online research. So I had no idea when took the dialysis position, and this was hourly pay as well. So I was like, well, give me this number hourly. And like the FA that's there now, she was kind of like laughed and she was like, they're not going to give you that. Like you have no experience. And now looking back, I'm like, they would have given me that and they should have given me that because now they're trying to give me that and some. So it's like they should have actually. And halfway through, I got like this little dollar raise and like, and I'm like, you know what? Y'all are so disrespectful. Like, honestly, y'all are so disrespectful. I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving because you got these higher ups that make triple the amount of money. They do jack all. Like, and that's a discussion for another podcast, like the way the healthcare industry is and like how it's all for profit and which fine, have it that way, but you need to pay me as well. Because if it's going to be for profit, then you should expect people to be expecting more money as well. Like the more profit you make, the more profit I make. And like that's not how it works. And then they want to act like you're crazy when you come to them and be like, "Listen, what's this little dollar going to do for me?" Yeah. you know? That's what I don't like. So, yeah, I was like, I'm happy to leave this company because I just feel like they got it all wrong. I really do. And I think that they don't get it. And like what I know now, and I know some certain things that I know and that people, in higher up positions have told me now about like a certain amount of money that certain people make and bonuses and things like that that they get. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Glad I left and glad I'm going and getting the fucking money that I deserve because this is some bullshit. I'm in here busting my fucking ass off for these patients and making a quarter. And I also made this is probably the least I've gotten paid as a nurse, period, because I only work 30 hours a week. So that was also like something I had to factor in too, because I was like, all right, I'm going back to like 36, 40 hours a week, but this is salary. So like now how does this work? Because I can tell you what Caroline Penix is never going to do. And I'm never going to work a salary job and go over like 30 seconds over 40 hours. Never going to happen. Okay. I mean, 40 hours is even pushing it. I mean, honestly, that's never going to happen in your life. Never. And if it does start to happen, that's a discussion because no, 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 no. These jobs try to take over your life, honey, and they don't want to pay you. And then Donald Trump wants to come out and say, oh, we're going to give you tax-free overtime. What? So, oh my God. And that's a whole nother discussion too. Like capitalism and how like this country is awful. Like when you live and travel in other countries, you guys, the grass is greener. Just to let y'all know, bing, 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 bing. The grass is greener. Like people have lives in other countries. They travel. They afford vacations. Go to France in August. The whole fucking country shut down. They're all on vacation. Okay, like they do not play. You know what I'm saying? And like in this country, our work life balance is awful. And then here you come with Donald Trump incentivizing overtime. Like this is going to be like India before you know it. Like a 70-hour work week is going to be the normal. Like miss me with that. Okay. You can certainly miss me with that. And even if they do that, like I always maneuver the system, like I always figure out a way. I always figure out a way. People have always said that to me my whole entire life. Like, how are you traveling? Like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, because this is the life that I want to live. Like, I'm not working by your rules, you're working by mine. Like, I'm going and doing what I want. I'm living my life because you know what? I'm going to be in the fucking ground before long. And I don't care. I really don't care. Everything works out. Everything is working out for me. What's that like mantra? Everything is working out for me. Everything is working out for me. Everything is working out for me. Okay. And the way that rewires your brain, try it for yourself. Just saying. And on that note, I got my gratitude journal right next to me, you guys. And did I tell you on the last episode, I was like going back to the basics. So I walked into Barnes and Nobles. This was like on a whim because y'all know I went back up to the H Mart. I went back up to Northern Virginia to go get some groceries. And y'all are probably like, Carolyn, you're crazy. It's not even worth the gas. It's worth the gas. It is 1000% worth the gas. It's also worth my mental sanity to like get out of this town and like drive 2 hours. Like, I don't even care about the traffic. It hasn't even been that bad since they've done all that work on 95 up there. It really hasn't been bad. So I'm like, get my little podcast situation going, which I'm also going to talk about. Get my little podcast on, cruise up there. An hour, 45 minutes later, I'm in the H Mart living my best life, get my groceries, come back down. Another podcast later. Like, I love it. I actually love it. So, stopped over in Barnes and Nobles, which I've not been in Barnes and Nobles in forever. And it was just so nice to go into Barnes and Nobles. There was like people having like it was like a book club that they had going on in there. Like not like from Barnes and Nobles, but like people were just in there like in the little Starbucks with their coffees and like having like book club, but they were also just like talking about politics and like I don't know, just like God, like stimulating conversation. I was like, oh, that's so nice. I'm signing up for one of those. I'm signing up for one of those. I got to do that ASAP. Like, I have to have intelligent conversations with somebody. So, um, anyways, I bought this gratitude journal. It's okay. It's not really my fave, but when I walked in the door of the Barnes and Nobles, it was like the first thing that I saw, and it was on sale for $5. So I was like, thank you, God. God knew. God was like, Caroline, you need a reminder and you need a bed, okay? Because the world is crazy out here, and you just need to do your best to bring it back down. So I filled one out today. Like this is what it says. It says it gives you like it's more scientific-y. Um, and I don't like that as much because I'm just like gratitude is gratitude. Like I don't need a scientific study or someone with a PhD to like tell me about gratitude. Like I'm kind of over that era of my life. Like I just don't need like these scientists to like be telling me X, Y, and Z. Like I already know it. Like you don't have to prove it to me. Like certain things, yes, but like other things, I'm like gratitude. Like I don't need studies on gratitude to know that it changes like the chemicals in my brain because I can feel it. You know what I mean? Like I can actually feel it in my brain. Like you can feel the lightness enter your body when you start having habits where you're like more positive and like you're switching your mindset and you're switching your mental talk and you're like, everything it will work out for me. Everything will work out for me. Everything will work out for me. It's like you can feel it in your body. So I don't need Martin Siegelman with a PhD, commonly known as the founder of positive psychology. Like I actually don't need you to tell me that. It's nice. I'm glad he did the research. So now like people who are skeptics, like I guess they could go look at the research, but like I don't need all that. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this little gratitude journal. And I'm like, you don't need to prove anything to me. Like it's a bunch of like doctors, Cornell University, like whatever, whatever. Anyways. So this one said, talking about the positive psychology guy, suggests that using three good things method increases happiness by training your brain to notice the good things that have happened during the day. So basically write down three good things that happened to you today at work, school, an event, etc. And I wrote down lots of laughs at work today with Savannah. Savannah is my girl. Like this is like the saddest part of leaving this job. She is like in her I don't even know how old Savannah is. I don't want to do her dirty like that. She might be late 50s, early 60s. I don't know. She's been doing dialysis, y'all, for like 30 years. She's like the OG. She has been with this company so long. She is like just an angel for these patients. She is like a light when you walk in at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like the relationship, sometimes it toes the line. Like sometimes it's a little much, but you know how it is. A small town, everyone knows everyone too. So it's just hard to kind of keep those boundaries. But she goes above and beyond for these patients. And I mean, above and beyond. And it's like always like getting them birthday stuff and like sending them cards and Christmas. I mean, she is just seriously the best. And then on top of it, like we just happen to click. Like me and Savannah, it's just the oddest pair. Like she's a 60-some-year-old black woman who is just like so funny, right? And like I'm like this like weirdo little like conspiracy theory 34-year-old white girl. And like we just like laugh and just like had the best time. And she makes fun of me. And like I take it in stride and we just like geek out and we just like click and we have really good energy together. So like I will be very sad to leave Savannah, honestly. Like she's just like, oh, she's my favorite. So that's what I said. Lots of laughs at work with Savannah because it truly is like the highlight of my day. Like when Savannah's there, I'm like, yes, we're just gonna like have a good day, you know? And plus she's been there so long. Like as a nurse too, like I know I can rely on her and like she is like she's on it. She knows like an emergency, she's like my go-to. Like she is right there. She knows these patients so well. She's paying attention. Like it's just so nice. Like thank God for Savannah. So then I said everyone got home safely because it snowed today. I also was grateful for the snow. And then I got to eat mini corn dogs today and I had an amazing nap. So that made me like super grateful for today. So, and like if you don't do that, like you kind of forget. Like I wouldn't even have thought about like all the laughs that like me and Savannah had today. Like she was like geeking me out. Like we were just laughing. And it was like a snow day, so like all the patients were a little frenetic and like everyone's energy was like a little like bah! Like kids, you know what I mean? Like when kids want to get out of school and like I felt that kind of energy. Like everyone's like ready to go and get like hurry up, I want to get out. Like, duh, I need to drive. You know, everyone's just kind of ready to get home and stuff like that. So yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that if I didn't have this little gratitude journal. So getting back to the basics, you guys, and I suggest that you all do it too because these times out here, like I just like opened my phone for 2 seconds. I got on TikTok and it was like Donald Trump says he's the king, and I was like, oh my. Like Donald Trump's now calling himself a king. So yeah, it's hard. These times are really difficult to navigate, you guys, because it's like you don't want to delve into all the negativity and like all the shit that's going on and all the like really scary stuff, in my opinion, that's going on and like what's happening behind the scenes and like how now internationally it seems like he's wanting to drive wedges and really disrupt these connections that we have as a global community. And so like as an American who travels a lot, and I've already gotten ragged on over the past like decade, I have to say, the more that I've traveled and I've said I'm American, like immediately people are like, oh God. You know, like it's not, we don't have a good, great reputation like already. So now we're going around insulting and, you know, the whole JD Vance speech of it all. It's like, can we just not? Like, what's wrong with like having friends internationally? Like, what? Like, there's other ways to handle differences and there's other ways to handle like policy changes or things that you have an issue with, especially on like an international stage, especially like war in Ukraine. Like, there's just like a diplomatic way. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, we all have to agree, but like there's diplomacy is like a thing, right? You don't just get on stage and like talk to people like you're the fucking end all be all. Like immediately. Cause like, could you imagine if someone came to the US and stood on a podium and basically berated us for, can you imagine? And then here we are. Like, who do we like? I say that, but then Donald Trump called himself a king today and made his own little New York Times magazine, or what is it? Time magazine spoof with the crown on his head and everything. Google it for yourself. It's like a real fucking thing that he posted on whatever his crazy social media thing is. But I'm like, it's like getting to another level. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to keep that line of like head in the sand but also paying attention because you have to. Like, you have to pay attention at a certain point. Like, you cannot just walk around because you're not going to have a national park to walk around in soon. There'll be no wildlife. You'll be able to get IVF, Handmaid's Tale, conveniently. Now we're like super supportive of IVF. Uh, but there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things that are happening at once. So, you know, that's why I just like doing these like grounding things of like having a gratitude journal. It just really does bring me back to a centered spot because all these things start kind of derailing my emotional state and like my mentality, especially like, my God, when I read what their plans are, like with Alaska, and like this is all public information, like it's on their White House website. And not to mention like all the other national parks. I mean, not just like firing of federal employees that work these national parks, but like what their intentions are because it's very greedy and they will kill anything. Wildlife, nature, I mean, Mother Earth in general for greed. I mean, it's disgusting. and reading that the plan is to like take away tribal lands in Alaska. I mean, this is just Alaska. So like, can you even imagine what the plan is for the rest of the country? So yeah, it's like a lot. It actually made me cry. Like it genuinely, like, so like that's the kind of energy that I'm talking about. Like when I read this stuff, and it's also just like very confusing because it's like, what are we doing? Why are we just like allowing it? Like we are allowing it, but like how do we, instead of just like talking about it and getting on social media about it, like what is going to be, I feel like there's going to be a breaking point. But I also just don't feel like protesting is like the answer to this situation because I feel like he's just waiting for any reason to introduce martial law. And once that happens, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what we do at that point, but it would be up to the military, I guess, to really decide what side of history they want to be on if martial law gets enacted. But um yeah, I don't know. I don't really know because it doesn't feel like it's as it feels different this time around. Like it just doesn't feel like maybe because people are so worn down, people are literally just willing to put their heads in the sand because they can't take one more thing. They can't take thinking about the grocery bill and this and that and their kids and another snow day and who's going to take care of my kids. And then meanwhile, Donald Trump's calling himself a king and, shattering our relations around the international community. It's like, I get it. It's like if it doesn't affect you directly at this point, it seems hard to like check in. But I think it's manufactured that way, is what I think. So, anyways, just try your best to stay grounded. Like I'm doing my little bits. So, switching gears, just like when I was talking about driving to the H Mart and I listen to my podcast, because I definitely don't listen to my own podcast. I can barely even edit it and like listen to myself. I'm like, ick. I give myself the biggest ick. I'm like, how do you people listen to me? Like, honestly. Anyways, the telepathy tapes, you guys. So I'm like, this is so funny because me and my best friend were like, are we telepathic? We were saying this like a few weeks ago. This is probably like over a month ago now. We were walking in the neighborhood and we were talking a little bit about politics or whatever. We don't really talk that much about it because it is like an energy drainer, but like sometimes it gets brought up and whatever. So we were talking about it and I was like, it's just crazy because it feels like they've never watched Pocahontas or they've never like listened to Colors of the Wind. It's like they're acting like let's destroy the world like one chunk at a time. Like let's just fucking destroy it all. Like who cares? And she was like, no, that's crazy because I just listened to that song, what she said, like yesterday or whatever she said. And I was like, no, that's even crazier because I listened to the whole album while I was making dinner last night. So I'm like, how did that happen? Like, how did we get on the Pocahontas? Like, how did we get on that frequency, like on that wavelength? And then there's like so many other little things that have gone on that I'm like, are you in my brain? Like, what is happening? Like, so I don't think we're telepathic, but I think we're like syncing up somehow. Like, you know how like women they say like their periods sync up if they're around each other long enough, like physically, like everyone's menstrual cycle will start on the same times and stuff like that. So I feel like because we're around each other so much and like we are into the same things and like have like really interesting conversation or like I don't know, I feel like our frequencies start to like mesh together or something. Because like there's been other things that I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's been like I started a list, you guys. It's been that many. I started a list of things that we have like bumped into each other. And I'm like, wait, you just read that? I was just talking about that. Like or like all kinds of stuff. So I've started a list, you guys. But anyways, so I think I got brought up because we were talking about oh gosh, I actually cannot remember at all. I think we were talking about vaccines maybe and Like the whole thing that people believe that vaccines give kids autism or whatever. It's like stupidness that is. But I feel like we were talking about that. And then I was just like, no, I feel like autism, it's like a God given, like it's a gift, like it's a superpower. Like these kids, clearly they're intelligent and they just communicate in different ways. Like it's got to be incredibly frustrating. Like I was like saying that, right? Then like fast forward like a couple weeks later and my friend was like, "Have you seen the telepathy tapes?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And she was like, "No, like what you were saying, like these kids, they're showing that these kids are telepathic." And I was like, for some reason it went in one ear and out the other. Y'all know when like that happens sometimes, like something doesn't stick in with you. So she was like putting me on to the telepathy tapes, but I wasn't really listening. And but what happened was the telepathy tapes ended up being everywhere. I think mainly because it's gained so much popularity, but like I also think it's like the universe does that. Like when something's meant to come across your path, like it'll keep putting it in there until you pick it up. So I finally it just like clicked and I'm like, damn, this shit is everywhere. And I'm like, oh, that's what you're talking about, the telepathy tapes. Like sometimes I can be so out and like literally another universe. Like and then something clicks in with me and I'm like, okay, okay. I got it now. I got it now. Like, okay, I see what you're saying. I got it. So like that's kind of was with the tapes. I was like, oh, okay, this is what you're talking about. Like the children with autism, they're telepathic. Okay, it's a podcast. Okay. So on the way to the H Mart, I put it on and immediately I was like, immediately I'm not really with the vibe of the podcast because I will tell you, I am like a visual person. So I don't like if I was listening to my podcast right now, I wouldn't be listening to it on like in the car, really. I like to like visually, like if I can have, if someone has a YouTube, I put it on in the car and I watch a YouTube. That's just me. So, anyways, I kind of had a hard time visualizing. So they basically set up. So what the podcast is, it's as far as I remember, it is a doctor who decided that this was an interesting topic. She was seeing a lot of this stuff going on and she did research on it and did like studies and then basically the scientific community was like you're crazy, like this isn't real science, whatever, whatever, whatever. So basically, she was kind of shunned. And then this filmmaker came across this research, I guess, or her, or something like that. And now it's taken on a new life. And now it's like the telepathy tapes and like the whole thing. So what the tapes are like interviews from these children and their parents and like all these scenarios and like basically like from their point of view, how they see the world, like what's been going on, how they communicate, how they're telepathic, like all this crazy, amazing stuff. And yeah, it's very, very, very eye-opening. It's very cool. For me, I'm like, I'm not interested on the scientific part of it. So they give a lot of that background is what I'm talking about, which is hard for me to listen to of like, we set up the camera in this angle so that like they basically like try and prove to people that like there's no way that these kids could see like the random number generator on their phone. Like they're trying to like visually explain it. And like for me, I don't need any of that. Like I'm not interested because like I believe it wholeheartedly 1000%, no doubt in my mind. I know it to be true. Like so for me like that kind of in and out is kind of like I'm like fast forwarding. I'm like, whatever, whatever, whatever. Like, I don't care. I want to know the story. I want to know the human experience. I want to hear their stories. I want to understand how they're tapping in to this different dimension, how they're communicating, like, how are they doing it? Because for me, I feel like it's connected. Like what I've been able to do as an intuitive, it's connected. And so the deeper that I've gotten into these episodes, it's given me just like light bulb after light bulb after light bulb because it's very similar. And I'm not telepathic. I think we all have the capability, but I think, well, I don't know. I do think we have the capability. I do. But I think our version of human, which I think that there is a different human version that will start to appear. I think the DNA, I think that we are going to start seeing changes here, in the next probably, 50, 100 years or whatever. And I think that we're getting back to a human race that's going to be able to access these tools easier. Because if you look back in ancient civilizations and things like that, they think that there were these capabilities before, but like we've kind of erased it out of our DNA, and especially with like our lives. I mean, look at our lives. Like we don't even know who we are. We don't even have 2 seconds to take a shit in the morning. So like you really think, you know what I mean? You guys get what I'm saying. Like it's very difficult for us, even if we do have these capabilities, it's very difficult for us to access them on a day in and day out basis because our lives are so chaotic, so crazy. It's so much noise all the time. It's very difficult. So, anyways, yeah, the kids, they basically share their experiences, and it is just so amazing to hear. And it's so emotional. It's some of it is just gut wrenching because you can just imagine the suffering that they go through and the frustration that they go through. Their families as well. Like it's just some of the stories are just incredible, and what the families have gone through for these kids, and within their own circles, they've known this stuff for a long time. Like the kids' parents or the kids' teachers, like they've always kind of maybe thought or questioned or like, how the hell do you know that? Like, how would you know? Like day in and day out, they've had so many experiences of like, how did you know that? Like, how did you know where I hid the candy? Like, how did you know this, that, and the other? Like, how the fuck do you know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so within their circles and probably within the autism community, like, I think that there's probably been a lot of this discussion. So now it's kind of hit the mainstream, it's hit the zeitgeist. And like, I just think that this is what I'm talking about, like this like evolution that we're going into, like this age of Aquarius. Like, it's another thing. Like, we started off the year with like UFOs. Now we're talking about telepathy. Like, it's like the way the human consciousness, it's like the way we're evolving, right? And so, um, yeah, and in my like opinion and like listening to it, it really resonated with me, like everything that these kids were talking about, especially when they were talking about how they communicate with each other. So they're able to communicate mentally, like they're nonverbal children with autism. So kind of the most severe form of autism. Some of them can like have, language and stuff like that, but very little. They use like keypads and stuff like that to like technology to like get their words out and to communicate. So, or I shouldn't say to communicate, but to speak, I guess you should say, like verbally. We have like speakers and like non-speakers. Like I'm a speaker. But basically what I thought like really there was, I think it's like the third episode. I'm only on like episode 4 or 5, I think. But I think it was like the third episode they started talking about bringing in the aspect of these kids being able to communicate with other kids who have autism, like across state lines, like, and they describe that they go to it's called like the talk on the hill or the chat on the hill. So this is basically like a different frequency, a different dimension that they go to, and they can communicate with each other. And like for like the average person, that probably seems like absolutely insane and crazy and like not possible. For me, I was like, oh my gosh. Like everything started to click in, like hearing these stories of how they access this ability. Because it's very similar to what I go through, like what I would do when I was like an intuitive life coach and like finding out that I have this ability, which we all do, but like finding out that like, oh my God, I can actually access this, but it does take effort, it does take work, it takes meditation, it takes time for me to like silence everything around me, get into a black hole, which basically I would shut all the blinds, and like in Europe, they're like metal shutters. So I would like, put the remote, cut those things all the way down, be in a black living room, and I would meditate and I would lose like my physical body. I would go into a different dimension. I wouldn't even realize that I had a physical body. And one of the children in one of the episodes, that's how they describe their like day-to-day experience, is that they don't even realize that they have hands. They didn't even realize that they had fingers. Like, because they're trying to learn how to type on this type thing on like the keypad to use language. But the one boy, or was it the girl? I can't remember. Anyways, one of the kids is like, I didn't even realize I had fingers, right? But I can get there through meditation. But these kids, and they've done brainwave now, like, research to show that these kids operate in a different frequency. And like, we can get there, but it takes work. These kids are like already there. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, like I know what he's talking about. Or she, I can't remember. He or she. And I'm like, I know that experience. Like when you're out of body, like you don't even feel your hands anymore. You don't even realize that you're in a physical being anymore. So I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Then another kid describes like when they do this talk on the hill and they communicate with each other that one of the kids has to be like in a dark space. Like he puts like five pillows over his face. He's like sensory deprivation mode. Like everything must go away. Like in order for him to be able to chat with his buddies, like in this dimension, called the chat on the hill, to talk on the hill or whatever. And I get that because, like I said, I had to go, like, make everything pitch black dark. It has to be quiet. There can't be another person, like, in my vicinity. Like, even in this house where I am now with my mom here, I can't meditate. Like, it's just the energy is weird. It's hard for me to get into that state, into a very deep state, because, like, then she's going to open the door and be like, oh, are you still napping? Or, like, no, I'm meditating, mom. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? There's like that kind of energy. It's like, I don't know, it's not the same. It's like when you're by yourself, like sensory, you've deprived yourself of all the noise and all the shit that's going on, and you shut it all the way down. It's like you can go into a different dimension. And that's what these kids do in order to communicate. Like they have, in order to communicate at the clearest level, from what I understood, like the easiest level for them, the clearest level, like direct communication, direct messages to like one buddy in Virginia and one buddy in California. That's what some of these kids have to do. They have to like really get into like that zone in order to do that. But like on a day-to-day basis, they're still telepathic, you know? They don't have to like shut everything down to be telepathic. But in order to like communicate, and some of the kids describe that they can, like they've met deceased grandparents and things like that. Like that wouldn't be a big deal at all. Like they're like, hey, what's up? Like, and like for me as an intuitive, it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is all the same. Like it's all similar. And I just felt like I felt almost like vindicated. Like I know I'm not fucking crazy. And I know that I'm able to bring down messages into the ether and give them to people. I know that I can do that. And I'm not fucking crazy. Like, I'm not worshiping the devil. I'm not communicating with demons as people actually told me. Like, no, I'm not. And like, what you're gonna say kids with autism, that's what they're doing too? Like it's like I just feel like now that this has kind of broken the barrier, because before it was like, oh, you're psychic, you're woo woo. I don't believe in that shit. And like, don't even bring religion into it because like that's a whole nother book, a whole nother can of worms. It's like, no, like this stuff is real. Like it's not woo woo kooky. Oh my God, it's none of that. Like it's very accessible for every human being, but we live in like such a crazy world. And if you think about children who have severe autism, just going outside, just talking loudly is too much for them. It's like sensory overload because they're already in this dimension, right? Like that I had to deprive myself of everything to get to that dimension. Like these kids are walking around in it. So like I cannot even imagine. Because once I got into that state, day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, I was meditating for hours and hours and hours and hours. I was communicating with, deceased grandparents, and like I'm like, "Oh my God, like this is so fucking cool. This is crazy." I'm like giving clients messages and they're like, holy shit, how do you know this stuff? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm really fucking doing it. Like it was really, really, really cool. And I'm sitting there doing that. And like when I tried to like acclimate back into like this day to day life that we live, it was so loud. It was so noisy. And I mean, I remember that was a big split in my relationship with my ex. It was like, He wasn't on this journey. I was on it solo. Was he super supportive and amazing and like, whoa, like you're able to do that? Like that's really cool. Like that's you know what I mean? Like it was a very supportive environment. And I feel like that's why I was able to get to that place because like being here, that's not possible for me. But like when I was there, it was like much more open-minded and like there was no pressure to be like, well, are you applying for jobs today? Or like, what are you doing? Like you're just sitting around meditating. It was like none of that. I was like, whoa, that's cool. Like, all this stuff, like super supportive. So to see that as a big split in my relationship because that wasn't his journey, right? So he's still like going to bars and partying and like doing all this stuff. And even on like a maturity level, okay. But it was more to me on like a sensory level. I was like, I don't want to be in that environment. It's too loud. Like I don't enjoy it anymore. It doesn't feel good to me. I don't like it. And like now it all is like kind of coming together for me. After listening to the telepathy tapes, I was like, whoa, like that is really fucking cool. And I just feel like less crazy. I feel like protect these kids at all costs, like because they're gonna get so much flack probably, coming out into the world saying that they can read your mind and that that's how they communicate. They read minds and they can access different dimensions very easily. And um yeah, I hope everyone that comes across it is super open-minded and can come to the telepathy tapes with a sense of empathy, like just even for these children and like what they've been through and like can you imagine like no matter what your like beliefs are and if because I've been on the receiving end of some stuff, but like I don't know, I feel like this hits different. It's not some psychic saying, "Yeah, I can talk to your dead grandma." Like this is a child with severe autism that is saying, I can read your mind. What fucking benefit is that of that child? Because, people always say that about psychics and everything else fraudulent, fraud, 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 fraud. It's just money. It's just money. It's just money. Okay. Well, explain to me what a child who's nonverbal suffering in this cruel, like earthly existence that we live in, that in a world that's not set up for them whatsoever, what would that benefit be? Like, I'm not seeing it? So, yeah, I want everyone to go listen to it just because we have to, like, it's so important to start really stretching it out, like, stretching out what you think is like reality. We've got to start, like, really stretching the bounds of it because I'm telling you, like this little earthly reality that we live, it's not the end. Like it's not, we're just evolving into something very much wider and bigger and more amazing and more cool, in my opinion. Like this shit is so cool. And like what humans are capable of and like what we're like, what God gave us, like what we've come down here with and the abilities that we have and the skills and the gifts and yeah, I just feel like it's like the tip of the iceberg. And I mean, we're in February 2025, okay? Like it is just really going to be a special year, I think. So, I will leave you guys with that. So go check out the telepathy tapes and keep an open mind and yeah, that's what I'm going to leave it with. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week and we will chat soon. Bye guys.